Chapter 82 Background is also a form of strength. Mrs. Tang Yue, did you give Mo Fan a private lesson? How can Mo Fan be so abnormal? Xu Jiaoting couldn't help but ask. This time, the arrogant lightning user, Xu Jiaoting, was completely defeated. He, Xu Jiaoting, had only grasped the second level of the lightning spell half a year ago. He had thought that he had approached Mo Fan's strength. Who would have known that Mo Fan's cultivation was like a rocket, freaking learning the third level of fire burst already? If it wasn't for Mrs. Tang Yue giving him private lessons, then how could he, Xu Jiaoting, believe it? I have not. That was all cultivated by himself, Tang Yue denied, shaking her head. Tang Yue was the only person who knew that Mo Fan possessed a stardust magic tool. She was able to roughly guess that Mo Fan's cultivation was much higher than everyone's expectations. However, she never thought that he would have already grasped the third level of fire burst. The face of Mo Fan's arch-nemesis, Mu Bai, had turned completely dark. He didn't know when, but now it seemed like he couldn't even touch Mo Fan's foot. If this level 3 fire burst were to fly toward his face, then he would have lost his dog life in just seconds. Zhouyan, brother Zhouyan. He was sitting there, his complexion turned extremely rigid. Zhouyan's chest had begun to heave up and down a while ago. His face was filled with wrath, but most of it was an endless astonishment. I really underestimated him. At last, Zhouyan couldn't help but spit these words out. He couldn't help but take a look at Mo Jiaxing, who was sitting diagonally from him. Was this simple and foolish chauffeur really having his fortunes flipped over? After losing the fortune of his entire family to send his kid to the Magic Academy, he had actually produced a magic genius? Third level of fire burst. Look at Yu Ang, he only reached the third level of ice spread after eating numerous resources. The guests who were sitting on the seats all had an appearance which displayed their endless shock. In the arena, the frantically fluttering snow finally weakened. The people could gradually see the student Mo Fan standing there proudly. On his opponent's side, the summoned ice dust shield had already been completely turned into specks of ice stars splattering over the ground, and Yu Ang, which the ice dust shield was protecting, had been blasted several meters away. His new prince-like white clothing had been engulfed by the explosion, turned into ashes. His entire being was like a sorry figure as he lay on the ground, no longer having the boldness of today's main character. The snow finally melted. Mo Fan waited for his body to warm up before he began to stride toward Yu Ang on the ground. Shit, do you really think you are the only one in this world who has grasped a level 3 spell? I'll let you show off, and then I'll kill you with an explosion. Interesting, haha, it really is interesting. It really is too interesting. Suddenly, Yu Ang, who had been blasted into a sorry state, stood up from the snowy ground. Mo Fan was somewhat surprised. This guy is still conscious? Logically speaking, although the ice shield did indeed take the majority of the rupture's effect, the exploding fire energy shouldn't have been blocked. The rupturing force should have been enough to cause Yu Ang to lose consciousness. No way, a level 3 fire burst still wasn't able to knock Yu Ang down? Is this guy's body made of steel? Zhouyan at this moment began to coldly snort, as he cursed in his heart. Fortunately, I prepared Yu Ang magic armor, or else he really would have lost to this kid who was deeply hiding his skills. Mo Fan had nearly emerged victorious in this duel. The power of fire burst, rupture was basically unstoppable by anyone at this level. Unfortunately, no one had thought that Zhouyan would be this cunning. Magic boots, magic shield, and an extremely expensive magic armor. Is there a need to be this luxurious? That man with the last name Zhou couldn't help but call out. Both Principal Zhu and Deng Kai were completely stunned when they saw this. Magical armor was a defensive magic equipment, and its price far surpassed that of a magic shield. The block range of a magic shield was very narrow, and furthermore there were some spells that you couldn't block with just a magic shield. Magic armor was able to block absolutely every attack other than spirit attacks. Additionally, it was worn directly on the body, and was able to protect them from the attacks from all angles. Truly a divine tool. I forgot to tell everyone. For my son's coming-of-age gift, I specifically gave him an ice silkworm armor, in order to protect him from sneak attacks, Zhouyan said slowly to his guests, rubbing his mustache. What the heck? What's the point of dueling now? His entire body is covered with magic equipments. If you really have some ability, then why don't you fight without the magic tools? How shameless, the worried Zhouman couldn't help but yell out. Xu Zhaoting and Wang Sanpang were also feeling indignant. Without magic equipments, then that guy Yu Eng would have been beaten by Mo Fan so hard that he wouldn't even look like a person anymore. The third level of Fire Burst would have taught him a lesson on how to be a person. Background is also a form of strength. Mu Zhouyan remained unmoved as he retorted calmly. Mu Zhouyan had no time to talk about this kind of thing with a group of students. So what if our Mu family has the resources? Aren't you a bunch of poor students trying to fight our Mu family in vain? Unfortunate, how unfortunate. This student called Mo Fan is already incredibly remarkable, and in the end, he still lost to magic equipment. Yang Zuohei sighed. Many of the present people were pitying Mo Fan. With the level 3 of Fire Burst he had displayed today, he could proudly laugh at all of his peers in Bo City, and it was definitely enough to cause many of the disciples of the ancestral families to feel ashamed. However, a duel was still a duel, a loss was a loss. Just like what Mu Zhouyan had said, background was also a form of strength. This was a logic that many people would understand after they entered society. You sure recognized a good father. Mo Fan looked at the ice silkworm armor beneath the damaged clothing. His heart also began to feel a trace of rage. Magic boots, magic shield, and yet another magic armor piece of equipment that was just giving him no way to survive. Yu Eng was still smiling, the look making everyone disdainful of him. To be honest, you're already doing very well. I thought you were a clown who was purposely pleasing the crowd. But it turns out you're actually purposely hiding your ability, and wanted to use the opportunity this time to amaze the world. How unfortunate, you were just this close, ha ha ha. Yu Eng laughed. He didn't care about Mo Fan using the Fire Burst, rupture again. Standing on the side of the field, his face filled with dismay, Deng Kai didn't know what to do. In the end, he couldn't help but to remind Mo Fan, give up. The ice silkworm armor is made to specifically restrain fire elemental spells. I'm afraid your Fire Burst, rupture is not capable of injuring Yu Eng. Deng Kai isn't wrong. On my next ice spread, you will be turned into an ice cube. It'll be complicated after you've been frozen. You can go in front of my adoptive father and kowtow to him. This can be considered me being a little lenient toward you, who could be considered not a bad opponent. Yu Eng stood there, wearing his ice silkworm armor. He looked like someone from the top peering down at Mo Fan. Yu Eng's proud gaze was very high on his horse. The laugh of Mu Zhouyan, that cunning fox, it also made Mo Fan extremely angry. Background is also a form of strength? Mo Fan also wanted to laugh, but he was unable to do so right now. He looked around the fully seated guests. He looked at the people who held a high position within Bo City. It appeared that everyone had accepted what Mu Zhouyan had said. They all carried a bit of sympathy as they looked back at him. Chapter 83. The duel hasn't finished. Mu Zhouyan, the two youngsters of Bo City have displayed their incomparable remarkability, so let's end it here. You, being one of the characters in the lead of Bo City, should be able to dismiss the youngster's delirious utterance as a laugh, Principal Zhu finally said. The present guests actually all knew of the events surrounding Mo Fan and Mu Zhouyan, and they also knew that if Mo Fan were to lose this duel, he'd have to kowtow in apology until Mu Zhouyan was satisfied. Mo Fan's display had caused a sensation among the people. A genius who was able to cultivate to the third level of Fire Burst by themselves definitely deserved everyone's praise. At this time, Mu Ningzhu also focused her attention on Mu Zhouyan's face. She also hoped her father would drop it. If it wasn't for Yu Eng having the advantage in magic equipment during this duel, then he would basically have lost against Mo Fan, who had exceeded everyone's expectations. Mu Ningzhu thought that this victory didn't have any meaning. Just forget it, how could that be? Mu Zhouyan coldly snorted. If any small thing dared to run up to his face and point at him while cursing him, then how could he, Mu Zhouyan, continue to meddle in Bo City? A win is a win. What was promised before should be fulfilled. Mo Jiaxing, what are you happy for? Don't you know that your son is going to kowtow to everyone? An old gardener asked from the slanted seats. What kowtow? Mo Jiaxing asked with a blank face. Mo Jiaxing was happy because he never thought that his own son would actually cause the important characters of the city to feel moved. Shit, don't you know that your son and Master Mu Zhouyan had a bet? If Yu Eng loses, then he, Mu Zhouyan, will personally apologize to the two of you for the matters that happened in the past. Whereas if your son loses, he will have to kowtow to Master Mu Joyan until he is satisfied. Our family's child would only think to himself a few words about Mu Joyan, yet, your son had cursed at him several times to his face. For an important character like him, even if he were to tolerate it, he would still be a little angry. Today, he doesn't plan on letting Mo Fan go, the gardener told him. Mo Jiaxing had no idea about having a bet. He really was a thoroughly confused father. As Mo Jiaxing heard of this, he was stunned. He really did not know of this matter. He was very clear on his own son's stubbornness and pride. Having him kowtow and apologize in this kind of occasion, in front of his classmates, teachers, neighbors, and Mu Ningzhu. What kind of children were there nowadays? There were some who would even jump off a roof just because they got slapped. If he were to kowtow at this kind of occasion, then he wouldn't be able to raise his head again. Mo Jiaxing hurriedly stood up as he ran toward the host's seat in the middle. Master Mu, Master Mu. Mo Jiaxing yelled toward Mu Joyan. Oh, it's Mo Jiaxing? Mu Joyan squinted his eyes. He still recognized this old chauffeur. Seeing how it's been so many years, let's not make it difficult for a child. Think about, today, in front of these many people, and many of them are his classmates, teachers, friends. Mo Jiaxing hurriedly pleaded. Don't talk to me about how many years it's been. You talk about it as though I didn't give wages to you. That time I had already been lenient toward your feelings. This time, no matter what you say, I will definitely not let him go. Mu Joyan's attitude was firm. Mo Jiaxing immediately began to panic. He really did not think there was such a thing involving apologizing and kowtowing. With the generations nowadays, and being in their prime, what kind of attack would his self-esteem receive if he were to kowtow and apologize in front of this many people? Then I'll take his place. Let me take his place. A child was not taught, a father takes the responsibility. I'll take his place to kowtow and apologize to you. When you're satisfied, that's when I'll get up. Mo Jiaxing said with panic on his face. Words were just words. This old chauffeur really knelt down in front of the numerous people. His pair of wrinkly eyes looked up to regard the still-sitting Mu Joyan. Everyone's gazes immediately focused on Mo Jiaxing's body. As Mo Jiaxing felt these gazes on him, he also felt a great humiliation. However, if they thought about it, if they were to let Mo Fan, who had cultivated his magic to far beyond the same level as his peers, do this kind of stuff, then the humiliation would definitely be magnified numerous times. He had already received the approval of the important characters of Bo City, and he nearly defeated the Yuang whom the Mu family had carefully nurtured. In these 3 years, he must have been practicing really hard. He was a very clever young man. The reason as to why he had gone and made such a bet with Mu Joyan was because he wanted to give his total failure of a father the face he had lost when he was driven away like a dog. This child was way stronger than himself. In the future, he would definitely become an extremely excellent magician. If he were to let his son kowtow to someone, then it would be a traumatic experience that he would carry on for life. He himself was just an old chauffeur, an old man with no future prospects. This kind of lose your face for life thing didn't hurt him at all. Watching Mu Joyan, Mo Jiaxing saw that Mu Joyan clearly would not cool his temper. He clenched his teeth as he kowtowed. On the dueling arena, Mo Fan suddenly saw this scene. His heart felt like it was hit by an arrow, receiving a pain he had never felt before. The tall and aloof people will be that way from the start to the end. The lowly people will forever be lowly people. Are people really equal in this society? If it really was equal, then there wouldn't exist such a thing as being driven away because he and Mu Ningzhu were close. If it really was equal, then their own house wouldn't have been taken. For him, that house that blocked the wind and sheltered them from rain was just one of the drops in the ocean for Mu He. If it really were equal, then there wouldn't be all that magic equipment bought using money in a magic duel that was witnessed by all these people. It was like a colossal mountain that would make a grassroots like him feel like it was incredibly difficult to cross. In the old days, social rankings were really clear. They would force people to distinctly understand where they belonged in this society. In the current age, the scariest thing lay in the fact that although you were at the same level as them, what you would be unaware of is that no one will tell you before you exit school that once you entered society, it would be like a bolt from the blue, rumbling down. It would catch you unprepared, and you'll be in so much pain that you'd rather die. The kneeling people? The sitting people? Although you stand most of the time, there's no difference between that and kneeling. Father, stand up. Mo Fan faced toward the place where Mo Jiaxing and Mu Zhouyan were. Mo Jiaxing turned his head around, but his knees didn't have the courage to stand up. Mo Jiaxing was too scared of Mu Zhouyan wanting Mo Fan to personally come and apologize. Mu Zhouyan remained sitting there, looking indifferent. Mo Fan glanced at his own father, who once again had made a great sacrifice for him, and then at Mu Zhouyan, who didn't have any interest in letting the matter go. Father, don't return the gift back to Mu Zhouyan this early. The duel isn't over yet. Mo Fan looked at Mo Jiaxing, his eyes filled with icy rage. Return the gift? Mo Jiaxing had no idea what his own son was saying. Mu Zhouyan didn't know what this guy was saying either. Return the gift? Are you saying that I, Mu Zhouyan, also need to kneel down and apologize to you?